Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kedington News Steam and Vintage Special 2017 Part 2. Last episode we saw the people of Kedington preparing for the second annual Kedington Steam and Vintage Fair as things took shape on the Great Meadow and a whole host of fantastic machinery arrived. This episode we're going to be concentrating on those spectacular road-going steam engines. I'm here with Kevin Swan and this beautiful engine. Does he have a name?
Yeah, Lord George.
Lord George.
Yeah, and you're right in saying it's a she.
It's a she, yes.
Always complicates matters.
Yes. Lady Lord George. Yeah. Is there a particular rule for name? Was Lord George someone connected to the engine's past?
No, in actual fact, when the Harris family had it in its working career on the fairgrounds, as far as we can establish, it never had a name, and the name went on a few weeks after my father bought the engine in 1954, and the name is actually come from another fairground engine that started off with the family, the circus people predominantly, Sangers, and there was Lord John Sanger, right, and Lord George Sanger, right. The name Lord was part of his name, sort of thing, rather than a title, right, and Lord George Sanger, right, he had a bit of a checkered career, sort of thing. They travelled circuses sort of before the turn of the 20th century, and went on sort of after that, and he obviously had a falling out with one of his workers, and one of his workers actually stabbed him and killed him, sort of thing. So you know, there's a bit to the name, sort of thing, but nevertheless that name has always been with the engine since 1954, since my father bought the engine.
And I mean, well, this engine's actually got quite a long and varied career.
It's got a career in Suffolk. It's always worked in the Suffolk area. It was commissioned by the War Department to build for the Ministry of Editions, or part of the War Department. It was outshopped the 1st of October 1918. By 1919 it was out of use, and Malcolm Bloomfield from Devon and Suffolk bought it at one of the general sales. Yeah, they houses, they put in the inquiry. As far as I've established, about 1921, four of the sons was in this Bloomfield at Devon, and it was converted into form bit now,
Which was the fairground engine.
It was the fairground engine, and Harrison used it from about 1922 with their set of galloping horse roundabout. And then went on to acquire a set of Dodgers, which this went with.
So with the Dodgers being electric powered, they would be powered.
That's what the dynamo.
So that would have powerful enough to actually run a set of Dodgers.
A small set of Dodgers. Wow. But what you've got to remember is that Harrison for a small fairground factory, they weren't a large family. Like Thurston and all of that. They were primarily looking for the market in the village fairs.
Oh right. So, which still went on in those days.
Still went on, you know. They would move from village to village. Right? And probably the largest fair they went to was the Cambridge Midsummer Fair on there.
So these days they'd be doing things like this.
That's right. They would. Yeah, that's right. And that's how they sort of made the money. They worked through this engine as far as I'm able to establish. worked through to the early years of the war, when they had holidays at home, and I've got a record of there. She's actually been used at Haywood on one of the holidays at home fairs in the, I think I'm right in saying about 1942, and then it was laid up after the war at Clare, and the dad eventually bought it in 1954, and it's been in our ownership for more or less since 1954. It's had, I'll say, 2 major rebuilds, but
special effects.
We had to renew the inner fire box during the 1970s, and then during the 1990s, the whole new boiler, everything else that went with it. When you, if it's like an old house, when you pull them apart, like you find
more things that need doing.
That's right. So it's a really
ongoing job.
That's right. Yeah. And it's still an ongoing job. So I think you find something that you need to attend to during the winter months.
So it keeps you busy. I mean, this dynamo here, how much power would this have been able to put out if it was running things like Dodgers?
This is actually rated at 150 amps, right? 110 volts.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why I say they only had a small set of Dodgers, right? Probably with about 6 cars.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for anyone who doesn't know amps, I mean, your average ring main is runs at about 13 amps.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is
anything over 100 amps is. I used to work in theatre lighting a little bit, and anything over 100 amps is bloody massive, even in a theatre.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this. The dynamo is reasonably in keeping with the age of the engine. Right? It actually says 1913 on there, so that's it's built before the engine was, but nevertheless it's
yes,
it's overly built because of the fact that that was expected at the time. Sort of thing,
So it's good solid dynamo, and it still
works. Yeah,
still running in.
Yeah. Something like this, 150 amps. Probably the overload capacity is 100%.
Wow.
Right.
So all we need now is some Dodgers.
That's right. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's an amazingly powerful piece of kit, really, isn't it?
But what you've got to remember is that because you're only driving it with a flat belt, right? There's only so much power that you can actually produce through the flywheel.
Right.
So you're really looking at a maximum about 200 amps. To produce really.
And I mean, it's obviously rated for the 150 anyway,
that's right, yeah.
Which is still pretty huge.
That's right, yeah. It's, and being DC, right? It's a bit sort of
dangerous.
You've got to treat it with respect.
Yeah. So it wasn't. It's not an AC. It's a DC.
Oh, it's a DC. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that could, you don't want an accident with that, do you?
No, that's right. You don't go off and see what that's like.
No, that's wow. Yes.
Yeah.
That's quite something. It's had a life, this engine. It really has.
Oh yeah, very much so. And
got fed up with farming, went into show business.
It sort of. The government during the First World War, right, they were looking to basically have a means of actually producing and getting both equipment and fodder and stores and so forth, either to the railhead or to the nearest shipping port.
Yes.
Right? And the railways were, by 1915, 1916, were totally overloaded with everything.
With what they were doing already.
Right? And they were thinking about using these to actually get into the either the railheads or the shipping ports.
Yeah.
Right? I think I'm right in saying in total for the ministry, Garrett's between 1915 and 1918, Garrett's produced somewhere in the region of nearly 400 of this particular type of engine.
So these would have been all over the place.
They would be over the place. And these weren't the only manufacturer actually
no.
doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you'd have lots of them.
And up and down the country there was all sorts of manufacturers building all manner of things.
Vehicles of all kinds.
All kinds. Plus the fact they were building the armaments.
Yes.
To go with it.
I suppose, and back then you had the bigger guns.
Oh, yeah.
The diesel lorries wouldn't necessarily have been
they weren't
capable
around.
of what little diesel there wasn't capable of pulling large weights back then, was it?
No, that's right.
Only the steam could handle the big stuff.
Plus the fact that these would go all day, sort of 24/7. If you can find somebody to, they would swap drivers.
Yeah. As long as you can find someone to drive it, it'll keep going.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's records of similar engines to this driving from East Suffolk down to Southampton with loads, right?
And what sort of? Well, I mean, I know that one over there would do, I think, about 12, and I know the steam lorry could do slightly more than that. I think.
These would do 8 to 10 more than that.
So it's a long old journey.
It's a long journey, but it's all relative, isn't it?
Well, compared to what they had then, I suppose.
That's right, yeah, because the only alternative was the horse and cart.
Yes, which was slower still.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So it was a big step forward.
And I'd guess this would pull a hell of a lot more than a horse and cart would.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, these when they're loaded, sort of thing. Probably the norm was about 15 tons.
That's what swimming
yeah,
all about.
So I mean, they would have been absolutely vital for so much stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was possibly a forgotten factor into the First World War of what transport had made it work, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Because, we now sort of we're now accelerating. Probably that's the wrong word for it, but 100
remembering 100 years of that.
That's right.
And I think the image people have of what vehicles were in the First World War was probably the petrol-driven stuff that they were using. The first tanks and the cars they had been using near the front. But from what you're saying, really, once you get away from the front, behind the lines, these things were absolutely vital. Things that petrol and diesel just couldn't do.
Yeah, that's right. So these had a big disadvantage. They really couldn't use them at the sort of near the front because they put out lots of smoke.
And you can see where they are.
Right, and you can see where they are.
And of course, if you hit one, the detonation would be.
Oh yeah, tremendous.
Tremendous, yeah.
There are on record like the big hauling engine, the one Sir Douglas just down there, right? They were used at night time to have all the guns up to the lines where the artillery sort of were being used.
So once it was dark and no one could see what was...
That's right, right, and you'd have spotters out, sort of thing. The Germans would have spotters out, right, and they always travel in convoy. I've read one account of probably you need to edit this bit, but right, they had a direct hit on one of the road trains with the armaments and everything on, right, and the engine took a hit, right, and the steersman who sat was on the side of the engine, right. The only thing that was actually visible of him was his hands, which he still attached
to the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Heavens.
So it sort of...
When one of these things go, they...
Oh yeah, that's right, it sort of... I think it just puts it into perspective of what happened in the First World War.
Yeah. They were important bits of kit.
They were very important bits of kit. They had purpose.
Yeah.
And I think they sort of, in some respects, that part of the First World War and its importance has actually been lost.
When have we got them? So I'm here with Ryan and Sir Douglas, and this engine has just been restored. It's her first time out?
It's the very first time out, yes. It moved for the first time last Sunday night at 9 o'clock, and this is its first trip out on the public roads.
And how was the drive in?
It was good, yeah, everything worked well, and
excellent.
No problems at all, really. It was just like old times. We used to look after this engine for the last 15, 20 years, but it's been off the road for 6.
And how long was that? All that period, sort of a big sort of overhaul?
No, that was running. We overhauled it. When would that been? From about 1990 to 1997, and then we ran it for quite a few years, and then it needed to come to pieces for boiler work.
So it's is it a sort of whole boiler replacement, or
it's what they call the fire box? So it's the box that the fire is inside at the back bit of the engine. It's got water is all around the outside and fire's on the inside.
And you have to try to make sure those two don't meet.
Yes, that's right. Yes, and it was getting in. Yeah, well, it started life half an inch thick, and it had worn down to the thinnest, just under a quarter of an inch.
And at that point, obviously, that water is under quite a lot of pressure.
£180 per square inch, yeah.
Which is quite explosive, really.
Yeah, very explosive. Well, yeah, I mean, it's because it's steam that it's explosive, really, because of the expansion of the steam. When you test them, when you first build them, you test them just with water. And you have to pressurise it to 1.5 times that. So it's been pressurised to £270 per square inch with just water. Because if that was to give, then it just leaks.
It just leaks out, whereas steam will expand as it comes out, and obviously it's also quite hot.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah.
It took 2 years to rebuild and take everything off and put everything back onto the firebox.
And did you help with that as well?
Yeah.
Is this your first one that you've been sort of involved with?
No, because that's our model there.
The Pride of Yorkshire?
Yeah. And that's our model, but as a family, this is friends as well. So we look after it as well as friends.
And what would Sir Douglas been doing back in his working days?
This engine is bigger than most, and they were called road locomotives as a class of engine. So they were actually a road haulage engine, just primarily for. I mean, they did still do belt work and winching work, but primarily they were for transport. And this is rated by the manufacturers rated to pull 28 tons net load onto the roads.
And would they have been slightly faster because they were putting
They are
stuff?
faster. Yeah, they've got an extra gear. They've got a gear. Traditional engines have got slow and fast, and these have got slow, fast, and extra fast. And they added a third gear, so this will do about. As they go, this isn't that fast, but this is do about maybe 12 miles an hour.
Which is quite fast compared to a lot of steam.
Yeah, I mean, you're traditionally 4 miles an hour, as you speak. Yeah. Some of the steam tractors that are here, you'll see go down, they'll be even faster.
And
12 miles an hour is plenty fast enough for you on this, yeah.
yeah. But then again, the steam tractors, I suppose they're sort of off-road a lot. And,
No, they were again, they were road haulage engines, but just for lighter loads. So
right.
3, 4 tons, 5 tons.
So they'd have been the motorbike couriers, and you'd have been the transit pack.
Well, the ATV.
Well,
wouldn't it?
ATV, yeah.
With the weight of this, you're 44 tons gross if it had 28 ton behind it.
And I've been noticing this thing here next to us.
This is a steam generator. Not fitted from new, but a lot of these road engines were converted in their working life. These are primarily built for railway engines, and it uses steam out of the boiler. We might even work. That's the generator, 24 volts.
24 volts, so quite a lot.
Yeah, with the headlights on.
Are they turned on at the moment?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Well, it can pull 100 tons more.
This could probably pull about 100 tons.
It could do, yeah, but it was to pull 28 tons on as an all day long, every day.
But in times of need, it had quite a lot of power behind it.
masses. Yeah, masses.
And sort of,
Yeah, I think we've had about 65 tons behind it, and that's on grass.
That guy's a real one. Thank you.
electrics be used just for lights, or would they have been for other things as well?
Yeah, they were primarily just for lighting.
So
As
go all night.
an old hand said to me, he said, all oil lights are all right unless you wanted to do anything. You can't really see to work hard. So yeah,
Right, you put the tyres on the wheels, didn't you? So it'd be more firm.
yeah.
Because they used to be really bumpy.
On steel wheels, yeah.
Presumably this means it's sort of got a lot more grip when you're...
Yeah, up to a point. Depends on the soil, really. They do tend to just shear the top off the soil, and you get too big. You get big 2 yellow stripes across the road where you've lifted all the turf off the ground.
It does get like, it does skid.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, because it's 16 tons, so on wet ground it sinks in a lot. It's not like a pneumatic tyre. Where
No,
it's
it's a big solid piece of...
Basically, the gears rattle because it's the type of metal.
They're very noisy. Yeah. Fowlers have used a special cast gear, and they ring as a really characteristic noise. When you're on there, you can't talk one to the other.
So you know what kind of gearbox people have got by the noise?
You probably would, yeah. Well, you certainly know this make, yeah.
Whereas mine you just know it needs fixing by the noise.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And what sort of era would this one have been?
This was 1920, and they kind of worked. They were going out of fashion towards the end of, towards the start of the Second World War, but then kind of got a bit of an extra lease of life then in the war because
Anything that worked was
pressed into
useful.
service. But these carried on a bit longer because there was nothing that could pull this. Lorries came out, but they only carried 3 or 4 tons. So what they describe as indivisible loads, things that
Had to be.
weigh 20 tons. A
You'd
transformer
get in one of these.
or bits of machinery and
Would you like
presses.
to see how the gears
Oh, the gears. Yeah, go on then.
Very pure noise, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good idea, George. So they kind of had a new lease of life. This actually ended up working for a guy who bought Hungerford Park Estate down in Berkshire, and he was I did a little bit of research, and he was a shipping magnate who founded the Ceylon Wharfage Company or something, and made his money, and he just, I think he had this, he cleared hundreds of acres of this estate, and that's probably when he ended up doing his hard work with the winch. He was famed for having lavish parties where he shipped his guests and the food and the drink in on a chartered train from London.
Bring everyone. Just
Yeah. I'd like to do a bit more research on him.
Sounds like fun.
Interesting. Yeah, he was certainly interesting. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous machine. It's great to see it sort of back and running.
Yeah, I mean, 3 months ago it was in every small component it could come to. So it's not there to go.
It's gone back together again, and presumably running better than it has for a while.
Running the same, really. I mean, that's the frustrating bit about this job. Doing the boiler work, it's just back. It's on higher pressure now, which is better, because the engines are subject to annual inspections, and then the inspector will say, well, that's getting near, so it's not safe beyond that pressure, but it's safe to this pressure because of having there's a factor of safety applied on top of everything. So. But this is the funny thing, it's it's the biggest amount of work you could do on an engine, but
it gets you back to where you
started.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, it doesn't. You could stand there, you wouldn't notice it. You say, "Oh, that's nice. You painted this."
It's the
essential. That's the hit on there, really.
It's the essential things to do.
It's the heart.
We split up, didn't we, for like colours to do.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you painted the red. Yeah.
So how long will the boiler last before it needs all doing again?
That's a moot point, really, because obviously that was original that came out, so that's lasted from 1920. But it's widely held that the new steel doesn't last as well as the original steel. But I would think comfortably 30 years. I wouldn't expect it to. It depends to a certain extent how we develop it.
But the previous boiler had been there almost a century then.
Yeah. And to be honest, 2/3 of the firebox was no thinner than the day it was made. It was only the bits on the top where the sediment settles, and obviously it's probably to heat.
It gets warm then.
Yeah. It's corrosion, really, is what it is.
I think you made the
belly tanks. Yeah, we made those a few years ago. Yeah, because originally it had them on originally, but they were missing when we first.
And do they store what extra?
Yeah, that's another thing that you'll see with the road locomotives, that they have extra water tanks just so they don't have to keep stopping. I mean, a roller may stop every 4 miles. We do 25 miles with these. The other thing that you'll see with the one is the motion covers, so you don't actually see the mechanism of the engine working. That's to avoid frightening horses. Because the horses don't like the moving, and the same with the solid flywheels, because the horses don't like setting the spokes moving.
So they just get nice.
Yeah, it's like the stroke stop. Although farm horses obviously had to live with them, and they didn't bat an eyelid, but we say just a bit more docile. But
all of these wussy city horses.
Yes, that's right.
They've got it, have they?
And horses really hate them. You've got.
I'm surprised they think their job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're very good. But they, if you see a field of horses, they just, no matter how slowly you go past, they just go absolutely.
They don't like them.
And it's still law that you have to stop on the road if you meet a horse, and it's an offence to cause the. I think it's a phrase. It's an offence to cause the engine to discharge steam in the presence of a horse. I love the safety bells. So
you need to look after your horses.
Yeah. Well, the horses were owned primarily by the people that made the laws. That's the gist of it. There was huge sort of campaigns to keep these off the road. Magistrates, which were the local landowners, they didn't want them on the roads because in the days before the councils owned the roads, they were damaging the roads because the roads hadn't been built for anything as heavy as this. There were a lot of punitive tolls on bridges and artificially low. Obviously, the railway companies owned a lot of the bridges, and they didn't want road engines taking their business.
That was competition.
So they put a weight limit of 15 tons on a bridge that could easily take 20, so you couldn't go over it.
So
There's a lot of court cases, and a lot of people summoned for speeding and summoned for anything they could get away with.
I suppose a bit like cars after them. It was just hostility to the
just changes
to the next thing.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for that.
that's all right. My pleasure.
During that conversation, we mentioned steam tractors. As was mentioned, these aren't agricultural vehicles, they are in fact light haulage vehicles. Like this one, the Mighty Atom. Unfortunately, they weren't available for interview during the steam fair, as indeed one or two others weren't. And of course there were vehicles and owners who we interviewed last year. And if you want to see that footage, then I'll put a link to last year's video in the comments section for this one. Still, they were there. They're beautiful machines. I think that calls for a montage. wonderful display wraps up this episode. We've still got our miniatures episode, our fairground organ episode, and our vintage vehicle episode still to come. If you want to catch those, subscribe to this very YouTube channel or visit www.kedingtonnews.co.uk. From there's a link to my Facebook page. Friend me there. I always mention when new videos go up. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it and hit the share button so everyone can get to see it. And if you want to come to the next Kedington Steam Fair, the 2018 Steam Fair is the last weekend in July. Until the next video, cheerio.